to the Maximize Business Value podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition their business on their terms. Our mission was born from the lessons we've learned from over 100 business transactions, which fuels our desire to share our experiences and wisdom so you can succeed. Now here's your host, CEO of Mastery Partners, Tom Bronson.
Hi, this is Tom Bronson, and welcome to Maximize Business Value, a podcast for business owners who are passionate about building long-term sustainable value in their businesses. In this episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Dean Ash, principal at ~$360 Consulting. ~$360 is a consulting business that helps business owners define and execute sales strategy. I've known Dean and his business partners for several years, first as an introduction from a mutual friend, and then as a member of a Vistage group. We're both Vistage trusted advisors, and then as members of Business Navigators, a servant leadership organization based in Dallas. So in addition to his consulting practice, Dean is also our sales strategy master here at Mastery Partners. So if you're already a client of ours, you may have met Dean already. So welcome to Maximize Business Value, Dean. Tell us about ~$360 Consulting.
All right. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate that introduction. We are at ~$360 Consulting. We're growth consultants, and we work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, business owners to help them grow top-line revenue through a lot of different engagement models, all depending on what the unique needs of that business are.
You do more than just the sales consulting piece. Don't you also have sales recruiting, that kind of thing?
We do. So we like to say that we will assess your sales engine, build your sales engine, run your sales engine or drive your sales engine, and tune your sales engine. And so for sure, the recruiting piece and those kind of things fit into the building the sales engine or building the sales infrastructure for maximum performance.
Wow, so you're like the car wash that also does the quick lube. You are
exactly. That's exactly right.
Sales quick lube. I like
exactly, and then drive fast too. So
that's right. So what's your background and why did you guys start ~$360?
Yeah, so I'm a career sales leader in the high technology industry. Companies like IBM, Cisco Systems, Polycom, Hewlett-Packard. That was my corporate career. And I've run sales organizations locally or regionally, nationally, and internationally, globally. So after flying 4 million miles just on American Airlines in my career, I thought it would be kind of fun to take some of that global knowledge and methodologies that we learned along the way and put them in play a little bit more locally here in the Dallas-Fort Worth, North Texas area. And help business owners and CEOs here. And so Chris and I, my business partner, formed ~$360 Consulting about 5 years ago. He had a very similar experience in a different industry, and said, "Hey, let's sleep in our own bed. Help folks like both of our dads who were entrepreneurs growing up be successful, and put in place some of these strategies, methodologies, and capabilities in businesses of a different size."
That's awesome. It's always great to bring that level of expertise to more entrepreneurial type businesses.
Yeah. And a little bit, and Tom, just a little bit more on that. We really have two rules, right? We formed this from the get-go. We only work with companies that we absolutely know we can help, and we only work with people we like. And that comes from our corporate days, obviously. So
wow. I'm glad I get a waiver on that.
You got a waiver on that. We gave you a hall pass.
That's right. You said 4 million miles on American. There was a time when people used to think that air travel was glamorous, of course, pre-COVID, but anybody like yourself, like me, who has spent that many miles in the air knows that it is absolutely no fun.
It's a beating for sure.
So we're gonna focus on sales as it relates to improving business value. So of course, the obvious place to start is sales growth. Why is it so important to have a strategic growth strategy?
Yeah, great question, Tom. And for sure, and you know this well in your business, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're shrinking, right? And and so having a strategic growth strategy for us means that you know where you're going, and you know the direction you're taking the company. You're solid on your business strategy. You have your growth strategy tied to that. And then all the decisions that you're making around what customer do I need to be focused on? You know, what do I need to be doing from a sales process perspective? What my unique selling proposition all pivots off your growth strategy, the target that you're going after, and it emanates, you know, kind of from that. We like to say the old saying that, you know, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Yeah. So your growth strategy is the one that is the map, the blueprint of where you're going to go. And the other key thing about it is not just having it, but sticking to it. Because we work with a lot of companies that have a strategy du jour. And you know, let's pick this approach this month, and we're gonna, oh well, that didn't work, so we're gonna pick this one next month. Pick a strategy and stick to it. Put a lot of wood behind the arrow, and give it time to take root, take seed in your, not only in your sales department, but also letting it show up in your customers.
You know, I find that a lot of times with not only growth strategies, and that is a particularly profound point, that you've got to define the strategy and then relentlessly pursue it, right? That too many people give up when they think that it's not delivering the results that they are looking for. And, you know, how many times do people give up right before that breakthrough? Exactly. Right?
Right before the breakthrough. That's exactly right. The other thing too on that, Tom, and you help businesses with this, that we benefit from as a consultant, but making sure your business strategy is solid and your business plan is solid helps you be relentlessly focused on your sales strategy or growth strategy. Because if your business strategy is moving around, you know, then it's going to be really, really difficult to peg a growth strategy or sales strategy off of something that's shaky.
Yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. You've got to have all the underpinnings in order to have a reasonable growth strategy. But I would add to what you've said that you know what we do, and of course our audience does too. We help businesses prepare for their ultimate exit strategy, and really the only way to maximize the value of the business is to have it growing.
Yeah.
It is so very important to have growth. If you take two very similar companies with very similar outcomes, say they're roughly the same size, roughly the same EBITDA, but this one has been growing at 30% a year for 5 years, and this one has been flat for 5 years. This one will command a much higher multiple because they've got the growth trajectory. You know, the worst possible scenario is to try and sell a business when the sales are declining. Now, the only exception to that, in my opinion, is if you're in a declining market. Let's say that you're in a business that's declining and you're declining at a pace much slower than the market, then that by nature actually says that you've got a growth strategy and you're trying to milk the market for as much as you can. And so that would be the only caveat to that. But otherwise, I mean, a growing company always commands a higher multiple on exit than a company that's flat or declining.
And just to add to that, Tom, consistent growth is also important. That's proven year over year over year. That means you have a system. That means you have execution. That means you have the right people in place, the right processes in place. You're sharp from a knowledge of your customer and your market segment that you're serving. That is, that obviously, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but that drives business value tremendously, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. That is key. You know, we tell folks that if you want to be able to maximize the outcome at time of exit, and by the way, 100% of every business will transition, whether we want it to or not. I mean, we have an expiration date, and so So every business will transition. If you want to maximize the outcome of that transition, you've got to have demonstrable year-over-year growth. And that's why it takes a lot of time. You know, when we engage with our clients, we only engage with clients that have at least 2 years, and that's almost too short. You need to have at least a 3 to 5 year runway. Our longest term clients have, 14 or 15 year runways, but at least a 3 to 4 year, because you've got to have that year over year growth, trailing 12 months. Let's say that you've been flat for 5 years and then you jump 30% in the next year. Is that sustainable? That just begs all kinds of questions.
Right.
At closing time. And so such a great point. You mentioned their execution is the key to sales growth. You have to have the right systems, the right people, the right strategy. I see too many businesses where they have 2 out of 3 of those, systems, people, strategy, 2 out of 3. Why is it so important to have all 3 of those things in order to fire on all cylinders?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, it's just like your car, right? If you have 8 cylinders or 6 cylinders or whatever it is in your car, if one of them's not firing, you're kind of spitting and not even moving at a maximum capacity down the road. We believe that you have to have the people, you have the strategy, processes, tools, right? All those things need to be humming to create maximum performance in your business, and for sure in the sales department. Good people, having good people is super, super important. So recruiting, hiring process, those kind of things are important, but you drop them into an environment where there's no onboarding, there's no sales process, there's no sales aids. Go figure it out, kid, right? They're just not going to be successful, right? You also may have all the right systems in place, great sales process, great sales aids, great CRM, right? We know exactly what our unique selling proposition is for our clients, but we're dropping, people that are not true salespeople, not true business development individuals, into that system. They are not going to be successful. So it takes all of those ingredients working in tandem to maximize the success of your growth strategy.
Yeah, you got to have all 3 components. I mean, sometimes if you have a really great strategy and the right people, they can overcome some of the things. But if you really want long-term sustainable growth, you've got to take the time to make sure that you've got the right CRM, you've got the right sales process. You nail this stuff down. So many times I see business owners hire somebody from within an industry because they just know they know everybody. This is perfect. Well, but if they know everybody and you haven't given them a system to be able to sell your products or services, and you don't have a great strategy, it's just not enough. You might have a great salesperson, but if you don't have the other components, I just don't think that it's possible to grow.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is if you hire someone from within the industry, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but if you do that and you're hiring for their Rolodex, right? Once that Rolodex is done, they haven't proven that they have the skills to go out and acquire new customers. And new customer acquisition, right, is really the underpinnings of a good growth strategy, for sure, a sustainable growth strategy. And so it takes more than, hiring someone with a Rolodex, right? You have to have, to your point, all the processes, the lead generation engines, et cetera, to feed your new client acquisition engine.
Yeah, we had in my last business, we had 3 different sales teams. We had the key accounts, which these are the guys working on the big deals, right? Big restaurant chains, big winery groups and whatnot. Then you had your hunters, the new account guys. Then they were responsible for bringing accounts in the door. But then we had our gatherers, which were folks that we called them our CR team. They were responsible for relentlessly cross-selling into our base. And so we were able to drive growth with that, selling to people that we know. But as you said, you got to feed these people, because eventually you've cross-sold as much as you possibly can. You got to have new names coming in the door in order to be able to have that sustainable growth.
Absolutely. That we would call it, kind of a land team and an expand team, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, we kind of getting away from what I think is sometimes negative terms around hunters and farmers, right? A land and expand is the way I like it. So you have individuals that are uniquely gifted and skilled to go bring new customers into the fold, right? So land. And then we have other teams or other individuals that are uniquely skilled to take that new customer and expand the relationship over, to your point, cross-selling, going deeper from a share of wallet point of view, those type of things. And those are oftentimes two different skill sets of individuals. So you have to hire right, but you also have two different sales processes, whether you're landing or expanding.
I love that. I'm going to steal that from you. Landing.
Please do. Yeah.
So I will give appropriate credit. So you're right. I think that sales is part art and part science. So the art may come naturally to some people, the gift of being able to assess a situation and read what's going on. But science needs to be learned. And there are lots of sales processes out there. And most of them that I've seen kind of have the same elements in one form or another. You meet, you get to know them, you ask lots of good questions, then whatever, all the way down toward close. I mean, most of them have those. Are there any processes, in your opinion, that are better than others kind of across industries?
Yeah, so we work with companies that are mostly business to business oriented, that have somewhat of a complex sell, right? So typically the sales process or sales cycle takes multiple months, if not sometimes a year plus, right? And in situations like that, we ascribe to a consultative selling model, right? So that's a consultative selling model goes through many of the steps that you just talked about, right? Where there's a rapport building, there's a great interview or discovery that takes place to not only understand and mind out the pain points, but what's underneath the pain points, the pain behind the pain, right? The risk and consequences of staying in that pain, or the benefits and rewards of migrating out of that pain to a new situation. Then we'll have more of a presentation or demonstration or a proposal type of phase. There's typically a negotiation that goes on as well, and a close. That's typically the consultative selling model that we will ascribe to, all pivoted around the customer, right? So if we're focusing on the needs that our customers have and the outcomes that we, through our products and services, can deliver, our customer is the hero of the story, always. And we're merely a guide as the salesperson to navigate the customer through the terrain to get them what they need, right? We see a lot of companies when we show up that are very product centric and not customer centric from their sales process. So, we see them and we call it they show up and throw up, right? So, walk in, let me tell you all about my products, my services, and how good we are, right?
Right.
Who are you? What do you need? Right? It's the the product centric approach, which is really all about me and my product and who I am. And not about the customer. And we just believe selling in the 21st century, selling in this day and age, has to be customer centric, because everything else from an engagement model point of view has the customer at the center.
I love that. The customer is a hero and you are the guide. Our stalwart listeners, the folks who listen to this podcast regularly, are going to recognize story branding in that. I did.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did 2 podcasts on that, and I'm happy to report I went to ~360 DFW's website the other day in preparation for this, And you guys have really done a great job of story branding your website. So
thank you. It's like anything else. It's constantly improving, right? And we have to constantly sharpen the saw, right?
Yeah.
But that's all.
Speaking of sharpening the saw, what a great segue, right? So
I'm here to serve you.
Yeah, talk a little bit about sales training and why it's necessary to even if you have great salespeople, that you should constantly be sharpening the saw.
Yeah, there's an old saying: if you have 3 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend 2 hours sharpening my saw, right? So, I mean, it's I can't remember. I need to attribute that to someone. I can't remember exactly who who said that, right? But think about everybody that's at the top of their profession, right? Whether you're a professional athlete, football player or something like that. What do, right? You spend all week practicing, right? You all week, running plays, working out, those kind of things, all to have maximum performance on the weekend, on a Saturday or Sunday, depending on if you're college football, pro or whatever. That's what, from a sales profession perspective, we have to do the same thing. We constantly need to be updating our game, sharpening the saw, and sales training is one element by which you do that. And I call that the tuning the engine piece of our process, if you will. So one thing we do see sometimes, though, is some business owners think, well, all we have to do is train our people, and training is super important, but it's not the silver bullet at every time. Sometimes we need to work on the process, the messaging, the systems, everything else that we talked about earlier. But keeping that engine performing at a high capacity, that's where sales training comes in, and needs to be a continual part of a business strategy or sales department, just like it is with your car, just like it is with professional athletes.
I could not agree with you more completely. Too many times I've heard from business owners, "Well, my products are great. They should sell themselves. We just need people to take orders out there." And the reality is that sales is a learned skill. It's not necessarily natural. And the more you invest in education of your salespeople on processes, on customer needs, on really kind of how your products solve customer problems, and most importantly, relentlessly following that process, is so very important. So I cringe every time I hear, "Oh, our products are great, or we just need people that'll take orders." That's not.
And then I always ask, "Well, how's that working for you?"
Right.
The other thing on this is having a solid, consultative, selling process, and a sales training, methodologies and tools that underpin that gives you confidence to close. Something like 72 or 73% of sales professionals do not ask for the order, do not ask to close, and so going through, an appropriate sales process, having the training that underpins that's very customer centric, gives you the mental framework, the mental fortitude, right? The confidence to ask for the order, because you've earned it. You've earned the right to do that. And we believe it's your professional obligation as a salesperson to ask for the order.
Yes. Right? Yes. So very important. And you're right. There are so many folks out there that get it all the way to the 5-yard line and then don't ask for the order, and I've had the privilege of watching, it's a privilege. Sometimes it's been a burden to watch lots of calls where I can then give feedback and whatnot. And I hear customers or prospective customers giving all the buying signals, and it gets all the way to the end. And the sales rep, rather than asking for the order right now, going, "Well, let me make a proposal and I'll circle back with you, sometime next week." What?
Well, exactly.
Dude, you're buying it back.
I know. I know.
He's ready to write you a check. So we're talking with Dean Ash. Let's take a quick break. Back in 30 seconds.
Every business will eventually transition, some internally to employees and managers, and some externally to third-party buyers. Mastery Partners equips business owners to maximize business value so they can transition their businesses on their terms using our 4-step process. We start with a snapshot of where your business is today. Then we help you understand where you want to be and design a custom strategy to get you there. Next, we help you execute that strategy with the assistance of our amazing resource network. And ultimately, you'll be able to transition your business on your terms. What are you waiting for? More time? More revenue? If you want to maximize your business value, it takes time. Now is that time. Get started today by checking us out at www.masterypartners.com or email us at info@masterypartners.com to learn more.
We're back with Dean Ash, and we're having more fun than two humans should be allowed to have. He is the sales strategy master here at Mastery Partners and principal at ~$360 Consulting, a sales consulting firm. And we're talking about sales as the driver for business value. So before the break, we talked about training and processes. How important is it to really understand, you mentioned this earlier, your unique selling proposition or USP, and how you differentiate your products and services? How important is it to really understand that?
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, knowing your unique selling proposition is how you create value for the products and services that you deliver to in the eyes of the customer, right? So that is how you differentiate yourself, how you create a margin between the other alternatives. The other alternative might be doing nothing, your biggest competitor, right? And so your unique selling proposition helps you communicate that differentiation, that reason to move, the reason to buy, and reason to buy with you, and it allows you to communicate that very succinctly. It starts with really identifying and understanding the needs that you address, the issues that you address for customers, right? Not your features and functions and things like that. It's really focused in on the needs that you address. Once you understand that and you understand who your targeted buyer is, the characteristic of the buyer that you're focused on, we call it your ideal client profile, then you can start listing out and working through why you're uniquely equipped to be able to solve those needs in a way that maximize a client's value. And that's the underpinnings of a USP that's well written.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of times management teams spend time to define what their differentiator is. And they might be able to articulate it. You know, it's one of the questions we ask when we do an assessment of business is, what is your USP? And then I always do, and if they can articulate it, many times they stumble through it, but if they can articulate it, I ask them, and if I walk out into your sales bullpen, how many people will be able to articulate that to me? And then they go, oh, right. And so it goes back to that whole training thing. Once you find what that is, every salesperson in the business should be able to answer that without any hesitation, right?
For sure. And actually, I would argue that everyone in the company should be, because we'll go into a business and then there's in some of our onboarding, there's representatives from all parts of the company, and I ask, okay, who's in sales, right? And the 5 guys over here or whatever, raise their hand, and I'm like, really? Everyone that represents this company is in sales, so they all need to understand the USP, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I
couldn't agree more completely. Everybody's job is sales. Everybody's job is sales, and because it's not only, you might not be actually selling something to a customer, but if you interact with that customer, you're responsible for retaining that customer.
That's exactly right. And oftentimes if we have plant tours or site visits, or we're bringing subject matter expertise in from another area of the company, another department, they need to understand how they're representing that expertise in a way that lands on the customer needs and supports and builds up and cements our USP.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm also a huge fan of KPIs or key performance indicators. I think they should be in every business. I know you're a believer in that. What types of KPIs do you recommend for sales?
Yeah. And I mean, clearly, the ultimate, is revenue and revenue growth and those kind of things. So obviously that's important. However, that's a rear view mirror metric, if you will, and doesn't give you a lot of foreshadowing into how well we're doing. I like to say, if from a KPI perspective or a metrics perspective, we need to be defining metrics that are more leading indicators, more metrics that can help us make decisions faster before we run out of year and miss our revenue plan. It's kind of like the baseball team. If they don't have, if I know that I'm losing the baseball game in the third inning, I've got a lot more strategy moves as a manager to maneuver around. But if I only know I'm losing the game in the bottom of the ninth, right? I'm relying on that one pinch hitter to maybe knock it out of the park for me. And that's a big one. So leading indicators, which are oftentimes metrics around activities that are early in the sales process, that we know if we perform well in particular steps in the sales process, that we know our likelihood of closing those opportunities or closing that set of our pipeline in the time frame that we've set out will drive the success we need from an overall business plan perspective. So KPIs are unique for each company, I believe, but our perspective and approach would be find several leading indicator KPIs that are activity based and allow us to predict the success, our success rate, and evaluate our pipeline strength through those early indicators.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. Lead conversion rates, number of calls. I mean, even just number of calls, right? I mean, those are things that you can look at. I could tell you that in my last business, when we came into the last month of every quarter, I asked our sales leadership to give me by person what is the absolute commit number before the end of the quarter. And of course, after many quarters of looking at that data and analyzing that data, I knew exactly to a person what percentage they were going to hit of that when they gave their no miss, right? And everybody missed it, by the way.
Right.
But one just stands out in my mind. He was so consistent. He delivered every time 70%. And so I'm adding up the numbers and I can apply the percentage because I know what this guy does. But the only way to know that is to be relentlessly tracking that as a KPI. And it never pissed me off because I knew how to really apply the metric to the number I was getting. And so if you're not measuring those things, and you get to that point where it's critical and you need to drive a number and you don't know how to apply what you've already learned or you haven't gathered that data before, then you could be in a world of hurt because you missed by a big number, when in actuality, if you'd been tracking that, you should be able to know where you're going to be.
I'll tell you the other thing on that very topic too is you also know the historic sandbaggers. The person that says, I'm going to hit this number and they come in double that or 50% of that. And a lot of some business owners go, well, that's awesome. I'll take that. And I'm like, you really don't. We need to be in a pretty tight band, because if they're saying one thing and consistently delivering 50 to 100% more, what does that do to your resource planning, your operational capabilities, et cetera? You're not able to accurately forecast and plan out what capacity you need, et cetera. You may either over capacity, have too much capacity or not enough capacity. and it all, depends on forecast accuracy. So
I completely agree that, the whole capacity planning thing, we go through an exercise with our clients that we do a capacity analysis, by department. What are we capable of? And if we did have this kind of growth that we're looking for, are we capable of actually delivering product to the customer? So forecasting accuracy drives more than just sales. It should drive even the operation.
Everything, all of your downstream decision-making process, right? And
Yep.
some of those have long lead times, as we all know, right?
Yeah. So let's get into one of those controversial topics, sales compensation. Always my favorite topic. I can't tell you how many times I have folks calling and asking about, we need to overhaul our sales compensation, or it's just not working, or what, give me a standard. Are there any magic bullet sales compensations out there that you can share? This will be a first, and I'm going to write this. You're going to hear it here first, folks. So is there any magic bullet sales compensation that just works anywhere?
Yeah, these are probably one of my two favorite questions. What's the best compensation plan, right? And I'm about to answer that question. The second most common question I get is, what's the best CRM, right? And I'll tell you the answer to that one is the one you use, right? So,
and that you can relentlessly enforce its use.
Exactly right. So, compensation models. Here's our guiding principle on compensation models. A good compensation plan is one where when, not if, but when a good salesperson completely knocks it out of the park and exploits it, both the salesperson and the business owner or the CEO in business are elated and ecstatic, right? So said another way, it drives the right behavior that allows a company to hit the metrics, the business volumes, the business plan that they are driving. Which means that unless you have a static business plan, you have to look at your compensation plan every year, right? Mm-hmm. We highly recommend and actually mandate in our infrastructure engagements that you have a written compensation plan, that it's for a 1-year term, and that the sales rep and the business owner or head of sales signs it, right? So it's very clear on what's laid out. We also are a big fan of we would call roughly 50-50 compensation plans, right? So there's a 50% base component and 50% variable compensation component to get to your target earnings, and also a compensation model that is completely uncapped, right? And anytime you put a cap on something, you're going to lose your best salespeople, right? Yes. So those are some just high level principles that we would come in to as we're thinking about compensation models. But every company that we work with, we would typically, depending on that season that they're in and what they're trying to do, we'll have some unique levers we pull and we'll put into place from when we design compensation models or compensation plans. So
it's got to drive behavior.
It does. It has to drive behavior. Think of that as this is the way a business owner, entrepreneur, CEO tells the sales department what's important, right?
Right. So, and so behavior that you want is really driven by that strategy. If we go back upstream,
you got it.
If you know what you want to accomplish and then the behaviors that are needed to get there, then your compensation plan should drive those behaviors. And so there you go. It's the simple strategy.
This is what we do is super simple. It's super easy.
It's paint by numbers.
Exactly. Paint by numbers. That's it.
So let's talk a little bit about your business. What are different types of engagements that you offer depending on client need?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about the assess your engine, build your engine, run your engine, and tune the engine. So,
will you engage at any one of those levels, or
we will? Yeah, we know that all of those need to take place, right?
Right.
If a company already has a really solid sales infrastructure, they have a good sales team, they have a great CRM in place, good compensation plan, compensation model, et cetera, and so we'd call the engine is there. Then we might engage with them on the drive the engine piece. Because just like you were saying, just because you have a good compensation plan and good sales process does not mean the engine's gonna run itself around the track. It needs great sales leadership to go keep people on task, clear any objections. Sometimes getting the sales reps out of their own heads and getting them back into the game, holding people accountable. Again, driving the engine. And that's just really good sales leadership to be able to do that. Some companies, they need the engine built. I mean, they really do. And most companies that we engage with, it either needs to be completely rebuilt or built from scratch. And so we'll lay all that in. Some companies just need an outside set of eyes on the growth engine, right, on the sales department. And we'll come in and go through a 16-point inspection of the sales department and make recommendations that either they can employ us to go implement or they can do it themselves or whatnot. And then we talked a little bit about some of the training elements that we'll do. We call that the tune the engine, right? And sometimes that ongoing just keeping the saw sharp, right? Keeping people on point. New people that are brought into the business also need to be onboarded correctly and trained correctly. We'll engage and do that as well. You also mentioned earlier, just we have a whole recruiting engine because finding the right salespeople with the right behavioral profiles that are keenly attuned to hunting or landing, if you will, like we talked about earlier, or account management, farming or expanding. We'll recruit the right people for you and put them in play in our building the engine process.
So while you're in your hiring process, you actually use an assessment tool.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. And we believe, hey, look, you're hiring salespeople, right? I mean, if they can sell you pretty good. That doesn't mean they're good. That just means they're. And so we try to put as much science into the process as possible. And in that recruiting part, we'll define an ideal candidate profile and the behavioral styles that absolutely need to be in place for that particular job, right, or that particular role in the sales department. And then we will have candidates take an assessment and we'll line it up to that ideal client profile. And that's part of the clearly we'll do the interview questions and all those kind of things, but it's just one piece of scientific data that's added into the mix.
I love that. Back at 25 years ago, when I was running after our business was acquired by a big publicly traded company, I was running a sales group that had about 350 at its max. We used to use a technique in the end when we were absolutely convinced that we had the right person. Just before we made them an offer, we would tell them that we were going to decline hiring them. So I'm afraid you're not a good fit for this. And depending on how they answered that question was whether or not we would actually hire them. Because if they bucked up and defended and said, yeah, so what do you think of that technique?
Wow, I hadn't heard that one. That's that.
Yeah, 25 years old. Yeah, this is back when you
I'm going to tell you what. It's a great real world way of it's objection handling, right?
Yeah.
And so what's the last thing that happens before a close? Objections, right?
Right.
And so to me, I've never heard that technique before, right? But that's a great way to see how their objection handling skills look, and a gauge of emotional intelligence as well.
Oh yeah. I used to love that. We would say, yeah, I just don't think you're a good fit, so I think we're going to pass. And then you shut up and let them react. And very rarely, when we thought we had the right person, they would say, okay, well, thanks for the time. Well, guess what? We were right on the cusp of hiring them, and that last thing that we asked caused us to not hire them.
Exactly. I'm now taking notes on that one, so that's good.
Excellent. I can't remember where it came from. It was possibly part of a process that we were using back in the day, but that was an interesting question, and I have used it many times since. And so what sets ৩60 apart from other sales? If I Googled right now, I guess I could go to the old Google box and Google sales consultants. There would be probably millions and millions of things. What sets ৩60 apart from other sales consultants?
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Tom. It's a couple of things here. One, every one of us in our firm are 20+ year sales leader veterans. So we're not someone that has bought a franchise or got certified on some kind of technique and bringing it into a business. We've actually had a target on our back. We've had to roll up our sleeves and deliver results. And so that's how we approach every engagement. Is it's our own. I mean, we own the number, we own the results, and instead of telling you what to do, we roll up our sleeves and help you get it done, right? And I think that's when Chris and I formed the company, that was a big part of what we wanted to do when as we started growing from a ¾ consulting advisor perspective, is that we're not just going to tell people what to do. We roll up our sleeves and put our expertise into play with the company and own it, right? So we're just super passionate about sales. We're super passionate about every business that we get engaged with, which is why our two guiding principles were so important. We absolutely have to know we can help you, and we also we have to like you as well. So our buyer persona, if you will, from a ideal customer is a CEO, business owner, or entrepreneur that has been humbled by trying to solve their sales department issues by themselves, and are looking for and ready for and with accepting of expert outside help that we can get them to the next level.
Awesome. So if you're listening and paying attention, folks, you heard the unique selling proposition there. And I love your guiding principles, but I also love that it's one thing to teach kind of academically, right? But it's another thing to roll up your sleeves and get involved and live it daily. And I love that about you guys. And so one last business question. This podcast is all about maximizing business value. So if you were talking with a business owner, what is the one most important thing you recommend business owners do to build value in their business?
I'll tell you what is build your organization or leadership team such that you can start elevating yourself to a spot where you're working on the business versus being mired in the business, right? And so defining the functions of your business, clearly defining the roles and responsibilities of each one of those functions, and either hire to empower, whatever that is, those individuals to operate those roles or inside of those roles and responsibilities, so that the company, when you decide to walk away from it in whatever shape, form, or fashion, the company will thrive and not miss a beat. So, and Tom, I know that's what you do in your business to help companies and business owners get ready for that inevitable exit. But that would be my recommendation. And of course, us at 360 Consulting, we can take on your growth piece if you don't have that one in place. So
I love that. I expected to hear a sales answer in there, but you're absolutely right. Owner dependency and being able to reduce owner dependency in a business is one of the absolute keys to building long-term value. And whether it's in the sales department or whether it's in operations or finance, or whatever, being able to pull yourself away from that and hiring the right team. I love that advice. So our regular listeners know that I always ask a bonus question. And so that is, what personality trait has gotten you into the most trouble over the years?
I am a eternal optimist. I mean, I literally I love serving people. I love helping, business owners and helping individuals, be successful, right? Or take that next step in success. And so with that, I guess that the trait that's gotten me into most trouble is, I'll overcommit myself, right? I will, it's like I did, because I just see the potential in the business, potential in the individual, potential in, what can be done. And I don't like to say no. I like to say, let's roll up the sleeves, lock arms, and get it done, right? And so that sometimes gets me in trouble at our firm. It's like, we've got another one. We got another opportunity. It's like, well, yes, we are. We're going to bring another and someone else in. We're going to do, whatever. But, so it's just that eternal optimist. And as a career sales leader, you have to be that, right?
Yep, exactly. So, all right. So how can our listeners and viewers get in touch with you, Dean?
So our website is 360consultingdfw.com. And me personally, I'm Dean at 360consultingdfw.com. Feel free to reach out anytime. Obviously, go to the Mastery Partners website. I'm listed on that as well. And also on our website, there is a free of charge 10-question assessment that you can click on, take, and you'll get an immediate response back as benchmarking your company against 10 top sales and growth areas that we know need to be important, and some suggestions of what you need to do. So that's all free of charge. So jump on the website and benchmark your company free. It takes you about 15 minutes.
What a great bonus. That's awesome. So go and do that. And that's an easy way to engage. So, man, this has been so much fun. I've really enjoyed having you on here. So thanks, Dean, for being our guest today. You can find Dean, as he said, at 360consultingdfw.com, or he's on our website. If you go to About Us and you can find him, it'll send you to his LinkedIn profile. You can get in touch with him that way. And as always, you can always call me, and I'm happy to connect you with Dean. This is the Maximize Business Value podcast, where we give practical advice to business owners on how to build long-term sustainable value in their business. Be sure to tune in each week and follow us wherever you found this podcast. We love followers and we love comments, and we respond to all the comments. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to focus on sales growth while you maximize business value.
Thank you for tuning into the Maximize Business Value podcast with Tom Bronson. This podcast is brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners to maximize business value so they can transition on their terms. Learn more on how to build long-term sustainable business value and get free value-building tools by visiting our website, www.masterypartners.com. That's master with a Y, masterypartners.com. Check it out.
that was perfect. I wouldn't make any changes on that.